What was that incident during Thanksgiving? I was around 5-6 years old. Us kids were playing hide and seek and I hid way in the back of grandma's closet. While I was hiding back there, I found this beautiful deep red robe. I assumed it belonged to my grandfather who died just after I was born. I tried it on and it was huge on me, but the silk felt really smooth and cool. So I decided to go ask my grandma if I could have it to grow into. Turns out Granddad was a Grand Dragon in the Carolina KKK and it was his ceremonial robe. The family members who didn't know about this already were highly upset. The ones who knew were embarrassed as hell. There was a small riot when I walked into the kitchen wearing it. That was an awkward Thanksgiving. I'm so sorry, but I cannot stop laughing at the image of a little kid walking into a kitchen wearing this giant oversized KKK robe and everyone just stopping and looking at him. A family friend, who happened to be lesbian, thought it would be a good idea to carry at least 20 plates across the living room. As one could expect, she dropped all of the plates onto the floor. Then my grandfather, who barely knows this friend, says the most infamous words in our family's history. You know those lesbians. Slippery fingers. I was probably 6 or 7 at the time. My mom's candles caught the kitchen curtains and some decorative greenery on fire. My sister and my cousins and I were at the kids' table in the kitchen while the adults were in the dining room. So no one of significance noticed anything except me. My mom threatened us with pain of death if we annoyed the adults during dinner. So I quietly walked to the dining room and stood silently for a minute or two. Until someone noticed me. And only then did I politely say, "Sorry, but the kitchen's on fire." My mom still gives me grief about my prioritizing politeness over sense. I once let my parents know, "Hey, the tissue box is on fire." Cue my usually stoic parents panicking and shoving it in the sink. Once that was over, they made fun of me for being so nonchalant about it. That story still gets told. I heard some screaming from outside my apartment. I opened the door and saw this lady running to the dumpster with a turkey still in the pan on fire. She threw it into the dumpster, which then caught fire. I called 911 so the fire department could put it out. Hello? Yes. 911? My dumbass neighbor threw a flaming turkey in a dumpster which is now caught on fire. Can you send the fire department to put it out so I can enjoy my Thanksgiving dinner? So 25 years ago my son was born early November. My mom's family is all prim and proper. So my adopted brother takes my 2-week-old son to check his diaper during dinner. Comes back with diaper in hand saying it doesn't look right, proceed to smell it, says something is wrong. So he tasted it. Everyone is flipping out. He filled a clean diaper with pumpkin pie filling. It was hilarious. Jealous I didn't think of it. My aunt not being able to come because she was in jail for trying to shoplift a turkey from the grocery. Not really a negative incident, but we left my one aunt in charge of cooking the turkey. Fast forward a couple of hours and we're all playing cards when someone mentions, "Wait. Why don't we smell the turkey?" Yep. She completely forgot to turn on the oven and let it sit there for about 5 hours with no heat. We had pizza that year. Perfectly prepared room temperature turkey. So fresh. So natural. When I was a little kid, I asked to say the prayer. It was a big honor to get to say it. My family was notorious for fighting, so I said my little prayer all nice and cute, then ended with the smartest "God please let my family act normal today and not fight." Before I could blink, my German grandmother slapped me across the face really hard, which pissed my mother off. Lots of yelling and we left. Obviously God said no to that prayer. One Thanksgiving my older brother took over cooking duties. He had just graduated from culinary school and was an amazing chef. My aunt and cousins came over to find the juicy turkey and amazing sides. She likes her turkey burned apparently and made her family not eat the dinner. They all watched us eat. My mom was so pissed they never got invited back to our house for any event for years. WTF. How can someone justify that to the family? Last Thanksgiving was absolutely the worst. My extended family live in another state. So it was just me and my parents. My mom was pissed at my stepdad for various reasons. So she stayed in her room all day. My stepdad and I awkwardly ate in silence while watching The Godfather. Then after dinner he had a heart attack. He died in the hospital a few days later. My mom was crushed that he was gone. And crushed at how she treated him in their last few days together. That was last year. I'm not excited to see what this year brings. My oldest sister called another sister a fat bitch over some stupid fight they've been having for years. Who then in turn picked up the bowl of green bean casserole and threw it at her. She missed. It wasn't that far. But I guess she was really angry and that messed up her aim. And it ended up hitting my mother's favorite painting. It wasn't salvageable. We all stopped having Thanksgiving with the entire family after that. One Thanksgiving my aunt, a very hefty woman, decided to wear an all-green outfit for some insane reason. At the time, a canned vegetable company called Green Giant had an ad campaign going, https://yahoo! B/1M4 Mike. My cousin and I were walking through the carport and she rounded the corner coming towards us. The entire family heard him say ho 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 and me chime in perfectly with Green Giant. There was about a second and a half where the world was totally silent. I swear even the birds stopped singing. Then laughter started with my uncle and the entire group just fell apart laughing. Except for my aunt. She started swinging and we took off running. I thought it would be a funny prank to put a rubber chicken in the oven on Thanksgiving. My mom would laugh and laugh. Ho ho ho. There's a rubber chicken in the oven. What a gag. 13-year-old me didn't realize that normal adults usually preheat the oven before putting the turkey in. My mom hid my Easter basket in the oven one year. Forgot she'd done it. Preheated. Fun times. My brother, 10, decides to demonstrate how to properly body slam himself onto a bed to the cousins. Proceeds to hit his head on the windowsill behind the bed and crack his head open. We could see skull. Cousin passes out and the parents only console the kid who passes out. 15 stitches later. We got to eat dinner. I remember once I was on FaceTime with my then best friend and her little cousin was jumping on the bed behind her. She ends up falling and lets out a very loud cry. My best friend turns around and yells out OMG and calls for her family. Family runs in and picks up crying girl and rush out of the room. After a couple minutes my friend returns to the screen and I ask her what happened. She says oh I guess she bust her head open. There was blood. Like as if she wasn't worried or anything. We just continued the call like nothing happened. My grandpa and grandma got divorced. And grandpa remarried. One Thanksgiving. My not so well grandpa stood and declared he regretted letting my grandma divorce him. And that it was the biggest mistake of his life. Right in front of his current wife. Edit. Holy shit sorry I didn't realize people would give a fuck. What happened next? What did this outburst of drama culminate to? Nothing. He sat back down. Old wife chuckled nervously. We continued with speeches. Yes this was during the what are you thankful for roundabout, and all tried to act like it didn't happen. Everyone was thanking the current wife for taking care of him and everything she does. Lots of love. But she was visibly upset disappointed. Now many years later, he's in a nursing home and she's not. Go on. Biggest cliffhanger ever. My uncle decked my aunt. The police were called. He got arrested. Jazz music stops. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner my step-grandfather will always bring up his father's death. Always goes into detail about how he walked into the kitchen to see his father's body on the floor with his head blown off. Either that or politics. Stop asking him to share what he's thankful for. I was 8 and hanging out with an older family friend. She was about 13. For some reason my very drunk and high aunt thought that this family friend was turning me against my cousin, her daughter, and bursts into the house screaming at her about this. Then said aunt got into a fist fight with another aunt in the front yard. Yep, we stopped seeing that side of the family for a while. Oh what I'd give to calmly sip beer while all this unfolds before me. Wish I had a family. Aunt opened the pressure cooker without releasing the pressure first. Went about as well as you can imagine. Edit. I'm not sure what she was cooking but if I recall correctly the pressure release was a little rubber nipple Y thing on the top. And there were, like, clips on the outside that kept the lid on. I was around 11 when it happened so I wasn't spending much time in the kitchen. Edit 2. Electric boogaloo. She just got burned. No serious long-lasting injuries. I guess he might have still only been her fiancé. Drove her to the hospital. She was home the same day and not allowed back in the kitchen for a while. I've done this before. 2nd-degree burns all over my chest. Incident? I hadn't seen my parents in 2 years because I lived really far away. They have dinner at my oldest friend's family's house every year. without anyone except my friend knowing. I flew to where he lives and we drove together to his parents' house in time for dinner. We drove up to the house and I saw my unsuspecting parents in the window, drinking wine and having a few appetizers with my friend's unsuspecting parents. I'm smaller than my friend so I hid behind him when we walked in the door. He went in and was greeted by excited hellos. Then I walked out from behind and everyone froze in surprise. I felt very loved. Edit. It was a good freeze. Even with some tears. Everyone has their plates filled. Grandma says grace. Then young cousin declares, I smell dirty pussy. How young? Someone will say pass the dinner rolls in front of my dad and he will pick it up and throw it at them. Every single year. You have to specifically say please hand me the dinner rolls or you get a bun thrown at your head. You need to start ruthlessly critiquing his form when he does it. What the fuck, dad? Are you John Lester trying to pick a guy off first base? Are you trying to throw glitter on a fairy? Maybe little less flop sweet coming off the old cannon there next time, pops. 50 Cent throws a better pitch than that. You look like Lucy Ricardo throwing a lamp at Ricky for coming home late. And just continue on until you run out of material. Played paintball with my family. My uncle has a receding hairline which left a portion of his head exposed just above his face mask. I took a shot that nailed that portion directly in its center. It was such a perfect shot that it made a circular cut in his scalp which proceeded to bleed. He was fine. But now he has this faint ring of white scar tissue in the center of his head that you can see in the sheen of the light glinting off his head. I knew a guy who had something similar happen, but the paintball was part of his bachelor party so he ended up with a black and blue horn growing from his forehead for his wedding. 3 words, deep frying turkey. It's a good thing we decided to do it in the driveway, instead of in the garage. I get 3 calls a year minimum from folks who don't think that far ahead. Well done. Spent all day cleaning the house for the guests. Made sure the windows were incredibly clean and clear. Little brother and cousin were chasing each other outside. Brother comes running through the door which was clearly open because you couldn't see the glass. He slammed through the plate glass window and got a massive gash on his face and leg. 80 stitches. Plastic surgery. And a multiple day hospital stay. Don't clean your windows too well. Can I show this to my wife next time she wants me to clean the patio door? Honey. Fingerprints save lives. But it's so dirt. They save lives. I'm leaving for basic training the day before Thanksgiving this year. So, my family celebrated on Sunday. My mom and stepdad were supposed to stop by. They live an hour south. And have a cabin an hour north on their way home. Well, 6 p.m. rolls around and they still haven't shown. Turns out, my SD decided that he didn't want to go to my uncle's and instead wanted to meet us at my grandparents'. Which he never told us. So he just drove right on home. Denying my mother her last chance to see me before I'm gone until February. I'm honestly still pretty angry. When you finish boot camp, don't add him on the list of people who can come watch the graduation ceremony. They will not let him on base and he can sit in the car and wait. Good luck, man. It's gonna suck, but you'll meet some great people. My uncle broke one of my grandmother's antique chairs during an aggressive game of spoons. It was too funny for anyone to be mad. If you don't get aggressive playing spoons then you're not playing it correctly. My dad spilled his red wine into the freshly carved turkey meat one Thanksgiving. Now every time he finishes carving it we ask him if he wants to marinate it first. Or have it plain. 1 year. I got so drunk the night before that I was severely hungover and sick on Thanksgiving Day. So much so that I had to bow out and not go to my parents' house where the family dinner was happening and just stay home, something which my mother has given me shit about every single Thanksgiving dinner since. I'm sure I'll hear about it again on Thursday. It was 22 years ago, Mom. I can hold my booze much better now, so give me a goddamn break. Don't let it get you down. As a Midwestern transplant to the West Coast, I was used to getting hammered on Wednesday night because I usually had few options unless I flew home and they were all late in the day. Meet my future wife and we both get hammered the night before and show up looking like ghosts, and then are left halfway through the meal to spray shit the in-laws' toilet. Suffice to say, everyone knew I was ass blasting and it was the worst silence I ever walked back on. 10/10 ass blasting again. Thanksgiving 2009 was a shitstorm. My family was visiting my father's side for Thanksgiving and things went fine until around dinner. A cousin comes home with 3 girls wrapped around him. One of the girls is about 7 months pregnant. So my uncle is all pissed and lectures him about making the right choices and some other stuff. Pregnant girl drinks a lot of wine and everyone became drunk. Lots of yelling and fighting occur and my family is just observing this chaos going on. Tears are shed and the pregnant girl leaves with the other girl, leaving one girl with my cousin. They make their way to the bedroom and fucked. Ever since that day we never went back for Thanksgiving. Edit. Well, this blew up. Damn. My cousin tried showing us the boot trick. It was a way to get the cork out of a bottle of wine without a corkscrew. You put the bottom of the bottle in your shoe and hit it against the wall and it's supposed to get the cork out. He gathers us all outside to show us how it works. We're all standing in my aunt's driveway to see the trick. Upon hitting the wall the entire bottle shatters and his shoe is soaked in red wine. I guess that's pretty mild. My family gets along pretty well. Mom bought a new stove and had me, my brother, his very pregnant girlfriend, and a few others over for Thanksgiving. About a half hour to an hour before the turkey was supposed to be done, Mom checked on it. It was still raw. She had hit the wrong button when programming the new stove and accidentally shut it off. Luckily we learned you can in fact microwave a turkey because, judging from the look my brother's pregnant GF gave, she was ready to eat my mom. Not surprising the turkey was a bit dry but otherwise not bad. I'm impressed you had a microwave big enough to fit a turkey. My dad farted in the middle of Thanksgiving prayer. That day shall forever be known as fart gut. We had all of the food out in the kitchen at my aunt's house. We all were in the living room and heard a commotion. Merle, my cousin's boyfriend's huge yellow lab, had helped himself to the turkey. He had pulled it from the table onto the floor. It has been almost 14 years. I still give Merle the side eye when we eat around him. Edit. Merle crossed the rainbow bridge today. He was 14. We will miss him. My grandma accidentally poured dish soap on the turkey instead of oil. Might have been one of the funniest but most upsetting things I've ever seen. Edit. Thanks everyone, I guess this story is internet famous now. http://www. Collegia Humor. Compost /7,058,907/15 people share their notorious Thanksgiving incidents. My grandmother asks my atheist uncle to say grace. Normally he complies as he knows it's just a thing his mom likes her kids to do. But other conservative uncle has been proselytizing to him all day and telling him he's worried he's going to hell and taking his non-church going kid with him. So instead of saying grace, he starts with, "Dear Heavenly Father, please tell conservative uncle to take Jesus, Christmas, Easter, and a cross and shove it up his ass." Finishes with an amen. Fisticuffs ensue. Walked into the garage with my dog and a casserole. My dad's champion show dog came galloping out to meet me, let out a death scream. Had a heart attack and died. Tried CPR for 10 minutes. It was clearly dead. He went inside saying what did me. He grabbed a bottle and left. I picked up the dog and went around to vet clinics for one that was open. The one that was just said yes, he's dead. I've never recovered. It was also my birthday. Jesus Christ, sorry that happened to you. Same thing happened 2 years ago. Right before Christmas. I try to not think about it but it was so horrifying I break down if the memory surfaces. Best dog we ever had. Giant goofy Great Dane. He wasn't even a year old. I was having a farting contest with my cousin in the bathroom. She let out one of those ones that ends in an upturned squeak. Like her asshole was meekly asking me a question. I lost it and threw my head back in laughter. And when my head came back down, it was into the granite countertop. At like 127 miles per hour. I split my forehead open and had to go to the ER for stitches. But wait, there's more. In the air. One of the nurses asked how I cut my forehead and I told her I was laughing at a fart. She farted in response. I was 11 so obviously it was the funniest goddamn thing that had ever happened to me. Anyway, I'm 30 now and still have that stupid scar right between my eyebrows and sometimes I remember how I ruined Thanksgiving like 20 years ago and then a nurse farted and I laugh. At my friend's conservative Catholic family's house for Thanksgiving. And his older brother told everyone that my pal had gotten a tattoo. His parents were pissed. And forced him to show them the tattoo. When they saw that it was a $sign on his left butt cheek. There were tears. Missed opportunity, it should have been the pound sign. My cousin stole a four-wheeler from a police dispatcher and left it in our yard. Told us he and a buddy would come back later to get it cause it was out of gas. Mum sent me to Kroger that morning hoping they had pie shells and called me when I was driving back warning me not to speed cause police were all over our road. We lived on Farm, a mile-long country road. We were the only house on it. The police took our statements, retrieved the ATV, and we didn't have chocolate pie because of freaking course Kroger is gonna be out of frozen pie shells at 8 AM on Thanksgiving morning. What were you thinking, mama? My grandparents had a new oven, and my grandmother had never made a turkey in it before. The turkey drippings somehow caught fire and the kitchen filled up with smoke. We called 911 but by the time the fire department arrived, my dad and grandfather had put out the fire, and X200B. So, when the firemen arrived, there was no more fire. They were really nice and understanding. My grandmother was mortified. My drunk aunt tried hitting on all of the firemen even though she had a good 25-30 years on them. My cousin and I just stood in the front yard drinking beers in silence, watching it all play out. And X200B. Fortunately, the turkey was fine and dinner proceeded normally once everything settled down. I have 3 sisters, all much older, 9, 13 and 15 years older. So they were always far ahead of me in life. They all had families and children etc. Well before me. I cannot have children. Which they did not know. We are at Thanksgiving table and things are tense. Because they are nasty bitches and I am just waiting for an insult. They start in on me about having children. And I say my husband and I are in the process of adopting. My oldest sister says, that is not really having children. I punched her. Don't regret it. As an adopted child, I agree with your actions. We drank too much tequila and someone broke the tank of our toilet. So my uncle didn't want to cook the turkey in the oven. So he just shoved it in the microwave for 2 hours. We called him asking how it came out later. And they were shooting hoops with it outside. It came back to life. And learned how to play basketball. I was younger, maybe 10, and my sisters and I were chasing each other around the house. I ran into the bathroom, slid on the floor, and dislocated my knee. I screamed literal bloody murder when I saw my bone pointing the wrong way out of my kneecap. 911 came. I took an ambulance ride to the hospital, where when a doctor tried to relocate my knee, by straightening out my leg and snapping the bone back into place. My drunk father told the doctor he'd fucking kill him if he hurt me. Would not recommend. 2 I can think of. My aunt, several alcoholic beverages in at a time, knocked over her very full wine glass into the fresh bowl of nearly 20 pounds of mashed potatoes. She had been the first, and only, one to be served the potatoes. Thanksgiving ruined. The year my grandmother passed we were all in the dining room sitting down to dinner. My grandfather said the prayer and as soon as everyone had said amen the old grandfather clock in the corner of the room started chiming. Everyone froze. That clock hadn't worked in years and I've never heard it chime since. Almost 13 years later. The worst one was probably where the entire family, an odd 20 or so, got sick so we all had to take turns going into the bathroom to throw up for the rest of the night. Nobody ate the turkey after that. My 4-year-old sister was sitting at the dinner table next to Grandma. After taking a bite of something she said my tongue hurts, to which Grandma replied, well, come here and let me kiss it to make it feel better. The moment their lips touched, my sister vomited directly into Grandma's mouth. My dad bursts into laughter and Grandma passes off my sister while she gets up to go clean up in the bathroom. Not more than 5 seconds after she left, a 2-square-foot chunk of the ceiling caved in and fell directly onto her chair. TLDR, my sister puked into my grandmother's mouth to save her life while eating Thanksgiving dinner. Not my Thanksgiving. But my buddy was telling me about how last year his brother asked for a paternity test mid-meal. His brother was 30 at the time. Edit. They did take the test and it determined that there was a 999% chance he was the father. My mom choked my grandmother for some reason in 2002 or 2003. Cops had to be involved. My dad broke my grandparents' toilet with the power of his bowels. He ended up having to buy them a new toilet, which he broke a year later at Christmas with the same method. If you can tell, my family fears my dad's bowels and we have many more stories about him and toilets. Put knife for Christmas. When the lights flickered off for a second and Grandma said, "Do you think it's the Muslims?" I had a moment like this with my sweet, polite, lovely, warm grandmother who liked everyone and everyone liked my grandmother to me as we walked past a broken bottle. "Be careful and don't step on that N-word with a hard-on knife." Me. Wait. What? Have you ever been betrayed by a fart? Have you ever been betrayed by a fart? In front of your entire family? I would not recommend it. Edit. Of course my highest rated comment is about me shitting myself. Happy Thanksgiving y'all. Ever try to find an oven heating element on Thanksgiving Day? My dad did one year. Deleted. When I'm old, bitter, and have tons of health problems, I will quote your uncle every Thanksgiving. Deleted. I would pay money to see that video. Well, there was one year where we argued over Muppets. How to defrost satellite dishes. Took apart the cabinets and ended the night by flinging carrots at each other. You take mushrooms with your family? My family is known as a particularly dramatic family and my brother and I caused a bit of chaos on the regular. But my aunt passing out at the dinner table from methadone really made us look like angels. When my husband was about 14 he went to Thanksgiving with his mom's side of the family. In West Virginia. They're exactly the bad stereotypes you've heard about people in West Virginia. His cousins had been getting increasingly creepy on him and his older siblings for years, but this trip culminated in two female cousins about his age snuck up on him when they thought he was sleeping and tried lap dancing, grinding on him. He slept in the back of his dad's van that night. It was the last time the family saw those relatives. My cousin got drunk and tried to kiss me. I was 15, he was 18, it was gross and I haven't seen him since. Me, dad, and older sister got almost 3 bottles of wine down when we realized there was no meat thermometer in the house. Ended up raiding the garage to see what we could find that would work on the turkey. Keep in mind that we were drunk enough that my sister magically had a Scottish accent. I sounded like I was from Fargo and my poor dad had the worst Mexican accent on the planet. We couldn't get the outdoor thermometer close enough to the turkey to get a good read. The infrared thermometer gun said the stream was hot but not hot enough. We decided as a family that the voltmeter said it was okay to eat. I was so drunk I don't even know if it gave off a charge or not, but we didn't die. Edit. We reference this incident every Thanksgiving now. Also, formatting. My alcoholic uncle got super wasted and spilled red wine all over the antique curtains. The curtains were as white as paper until that day. Holidays were spent at Granddad's house. One year we were inside watching some corny-ass bet Thanksgiving movie, when we heard a crash and screaming. We all go outside to see my 2 female cousins, who were sisters, fighting on the ground while the neighborhood wannabe drug dealer was standing over them laughing. Turns out they were both hooking up with him and they didn't know it until that day. The biggest tragedy was that the cause of the crash was the grill toppling over. We were smoking a ham on it. I was pissed. I felt sick, so my dad gave me a pill that contained a very large dose of dextromethorphan. Turns out I don't react well to it. I proceeded to spend an hour in the bathroom throwing up. My dad didn't notice because he was too busy dealing with a woman who kept calling his phone and yelling at him in Italian, a language none of us can speak. The rest of the day I was miserable and he was irritated by the repeated phone calls. Still not the worst Thanksgiving I've had. The image of your dad getting repeated calls from an angry Italian woman and getting more and more frustrated arguing with her instead of just not answering the calls is cracking me up, lol. As soon as my grandma sat down, the last person, the cat jumps on the table and has a brain aneurysm and dies in front of 19 people. My little cousins are all screaming. It was terrible. My grandmother ran over herself with her SUV and X200B. I was on my way to the festivities when it happened, so I don't know the exact details. But she was getting out food from the back of her SUV, put it in neutral instead of park, and it slowly ran her over. The craziest part is that my family, all inside, didn't notice until they heard a bump against the house. The SUV made 3 loops before hitting the house. She ended up being fine but now isn't allowed to go outside alone anymore on holidays. This story is now a grandma moment in our family. Oh shit. My mom dominated the conversation about how everyone should be drinking their pee. For a solid 45 minutes. She read in some yoga book about how it cures some infection called Bali belly that you get in places like, you guessed it, Bali. But also that it's actually just really helpful for all sorts of shit. Went way into detail about how you have to catch it midstream of the first pee of the morning blah blah blah. By the end she was defending it so thoroughly she said she was going to start tomorrow morning. She never did, and now denies the conversation lasted more than 5 minutes and that everyone was egging her on. More funny than terrible, my family's foreign friend was celebrating her first American Thanksgiving with us. And she didn't realize the gravy boat wasn't attached to the tray. Her plate was a lake. Whenever she comes back the years we laugh about it with her. Her brother was also fascinated with our fridge and microwave and actually whipped out a tape measure. My mother's side of the family joined us at Thanksgiving. Mom, as usual, made homemade rolls. So, I'm eating one. And I notice one of Mom's long black hairs in it. So, I started pulling it slowly out. And pulling. And pulling. By the time I stopped almost all conversation had ceased and one of my cousins piped up. Notice how the roll seemed to fall apart after Jimipajes Gita was done? The joke after that was that you could find a little bit of Mom in everything she made for dinner. Only that day. It was literally true. Family member flips out in front of their mother's side of the family because their sibling served salsa to their cousin in a bowl that is too small. What if he wants more? They promptly left in a huff and everything was grand for the rest of the day. My mom was in the hospital and my dad was supposed to buy propane for the gas stove. Instead he drank up the gas money and then tried to cook the turkey and fixins in the coal furnace. Of course he was drunk cooking and all the food was blackened. Still uncooked and covered in coal ash. I still remember the smell of charred turkey and coal. We were not religious but one of my brothers mumbled grace before we ate. Something like, "Dear God, protect us from this food." He was chased from the table. I'm sure he paid dearly for that comment but he didn't have to eat. Totally worth it. I grew up in the Boston area with my extended family. My uncle, for reasons I did not know, moved to Ireland when I was very young. One Thanksgiving, my grandparents, the uncle's parents, announced, "We don't want to make anyone upset, but we are going to go to Ireland to visit, Uncle." I, 15/M at the time, LOL'd because why would that make anyone upset? But then I read the room and realized that everyone was pissed. That was the day I found out that my uncle was a deadbeat who molested his own children and then ran away to Ireland. Our oven, for some ungodly reason, decided to randomly turn off mid-cooking the turkey. I caught it early. So I turned it back on. Turns off again. So I had to sit in front of the damn oven all afternoon watching a damn turkey cook by turning the oven on every time it turned off. My mom left a glass baking dish on a hot burner by mistake. It exploded and sent shards everywhere. I refused to move initially because I was in stocking feet and didn't want another sliced up foot. My 5'2" sister had shoes on. So she tried to come over and lift my 200-pound ass and carry me away from it. XD. I love you sis but no. Ends badly. Deleted. Probably a Sam Squanch. Deleted. When I was a little kid playing out in my grandma's yard, a turkey flew by overhead and landed right on the roof of her house. The glass pan that Mom was using to cook the turkey exploded. Dad had to spend a while cleaning glass shards out of the oven. When he gathered them all, he put them into a plastic trash bag and it melted. He got so angry that he kicked the trash can, which destroyed it. Oof. 2-minute list. The worst though definitely has to be the time my grandmother tried killing herself because my uncle wouldn't take leftovers home. There were obviously some bigger issues but that was as much as 8-year-old me could comprehend. Thanksgiving 2011. We're all gathered around the dinner table letting our food settle after eating when suddenly a bat flies into the room and creates absolute chaos. The whole family starts trying to capture the bat using anything we had. Blankets, sheets, umbrellas, brooms, you name it. Eventually one of us knocked it out of the air with a broom and scooped it out the door. The next year we decorated with bat-themed decorations and it's been a tradition we've kept up since. Everyone remembers the bat incident fondly. It really brought us together as a family. I've got video of the incident that I can post in the morning if this gets any interest. Edit. Op delivers. Here's the video for your enjoyment. https://streamable.com/3bquoo. My Sil almost caught the oven on fire. Mil had been making a sweet potato casserole and pulled it out of the oven, asking Sil to put some marshmallows on top and then put it back to let them get all toasted and melty and stuff. Sil dumps the entire bag of mini marshmallows on top of the casserole dish and sticks it back in the oven. A few minutes later, we smell burning sugar. The marshmallows had puffed up and then started to melt all down the sides of the casserole dish and dripped onto the bottom of the oven. Our shitty oven went into self-cleaning mode and locked itself somehow while my mother's turkey she had worked so hard on was inside. The oven then turned itself up to about 500 degrees to begin the cleaning process and almost burned our turkey to a crisp. After realizing what was going on, my mother began pounding on the glass and yelling like she was watching an inmate receive the death penalty. Fortunately, my father was able to jimmy the lock open with a screwdriver. The oven wouldn't turn off, so we just left the door half open and let it finish cooking. The turkey had a nice crunch on the outside that year. And needless to say my mom was able to convince my dad to get her all new appliances for the following Christmas. Used to live in Florida. When I was younger, my grandpa had the deep fryer out on their back porch preparing to deep fry our turkey. A lizard climbed inside where you would light it and got stuck. My grandmother was screaming at my grandpa in front of all our family that he could not kill it. We ended up eating just the sides everyone made. My dad, in true dad fashion, filmed the entire event zooming in on the lizard for a majority of the tape. We call it yardbird and tossed salad. My mom has borderline personality disorder. When I was 5 our heating element in our oven broke. My mom told my dad to fix it but he never did. She made all the sides waiting for him to get home the day of Thanksgiving. He didn't show on time so she proceeded to get shit-faced on wine while sobbing hysterically. My dad eventually showed with my uncle and a smoked turkey. The thought of a non-oven baked turkey enraged my mom and she started throwing all the sides against the wall. I remember being really bummed because I'd never had cranberry sauce before and wanted to try it. My dad and uncle grabbed me, threw me in the truck, and drove off. My mom chased after the truck and threw the turkey at it. Yardbird and tossed salad. My racist grandfather didn't want my Native American girlfriend over. It was like 15 years ago. I still remember it clearly due to how sadly ironic it was. I told my wife's uncle that if he said another rude thing to my mother-in-law, I was going to beat him down. We were at the table with the whole family. My wife, her parents, grandparents, uncles, and the offending uncle's wife and kids. That was 2 years ago and I'll be seeing him for the first time since then on Thursday. Wish me luck. First time my now fiancé met my older sister was Thanksgiving. She brought 2 bottles of wine to dinner. Proceeded to drink both of them to herself. Threw up on the table during the meal. Starting screaming and crying about how judgy and rude me and my little sister are. And passed out on the couch before anyone had even gotten up yet. My mother cried. I was humiliated. And my dad thought it was hilarious. Oh. And she tried to sell my fiancé Xanax earlier in the evening. Safe to say, we don't see much of each other outside of holidays. Thanksgiving 2006. I had a cousin who bullied me throughout my adolescence. He was 20 years older, for being overweight and being a goth. Made my life pretty difficult. I grew up and on Thanksgiving I saw him beginning to do it to my little sister, who was 12. Then he sent his 5-year-old son in to do it for him and I lost my shit. Marched into the kitchen. Told him to fuck off and leave my sister alone. Unloaded on him about the trauma he caused me. And just generally cussed him out and tore him a new asshole. My father jumped in and it nearly came to blows. My mom and aunt were in tears. I left the house. My father and sister followed. And my mom soon after. We didn't spend a holiday with them for years. Good for you, you're brave and you have the support of the family who matters. My 70-something-year-old aunt got blackout drunk and my family almost had her all the way back to her apartment when she actually passed out and they had to try to carry her up the stairs. They ended up letting her lie on the stairs till they could rouse her enough to crawl the rest of the way up. It was great. I have a wholesome one. My cousin went through a phase where he would only wear one beat-up outfit to school. and 1 year for Thanksgiving. The teachers pooled together and got him a turkey so his family could have a decent Thanksgiving. His family was decently well off, but he just looked like they needed support because he wouldn't wear anything else. Well, 7-year-old me found out, unbeknownst to everyone else, and decided to say in the middle of holiday dinner, "Kevin, I heard about the turkey. Everyone lost it. And now for the last 15 years. Everyone reminds him multiple times every season that we all heard about the turkey. He started wearing other clothes after that, lol. Last year my uncle burned the turkey when he tried to deep fry it. That was funny. Once one of my aunts was supposed to bring some type of seafood, I'm pretty sure it was crab, and didn't, claiming she couldn't afford it. It made my other aunties upset when she started bragging about planned vacations and expensive trips later in the evening. But they didn't say anything. It boiled over when they caught her trying to take all of the leftover seafood dishes and ended with her and my mom nearly fighting in the front lawn. That was also funny. A couple of years ago, my brother-in-law set the oven on fire. He had pulled the turkey out of the oven to check the temperature. It still had a ways to go. So back in it went. Except he pushed the pan, not the oven rack. It tilted back and spilled grease which caught fire in a most spectacular fashion. Roaring flames. Smoke. 2-year-old nephew and newborn niece are crying. Me. My sister. My ex-girlfriend. And one of my brother-in-law's daughters from his first marriage take the kids outside. My mom, being the quick thinker she is, gets the fire put out quickly without having to use a fire extinguisher. The kicker? The turkey was still undercooked when all was said and done. My grandfather was trying to put his foot down and get my cousins to listen to him at the family Thanksgiving meal. He exclaimed, "I'm the intimate authority," when meaning to say that he was the ultimate authority. We all burst out laughing after. Needless to say, that undermined any authority he was trying to establish at the moment. Giant family gathering. The host's house is right alongside an extremely popular street that has a speed limit of 50 miles per hour. We're eating turkey when we hear a large amount of slams and car alarms. We go outside to see that all of our cars are completely trashed. Our family's car was at the end because we were late. Therefore we had only a small dent and a lot of scratches. However, out of our family's 11 vehicles, only 2 were able to be driven. The rest were totaled. We found out a couple months later that one of the host's friends got completely drunk and decided to drive his large 4x4 Ford truck and slammed all of us. The host never told the police and forgave the drunk driver because he was a close friend. He hit my grandpa's van so hard the roof was curved inwards into a giant V. Growing up at the large family Thanksgiving, I was a picky eater. So lovingly a bowl of green jello was made for me. Over the years that bowl of green jello showed up. And over the years my taste buds changed and I no longer needed it made especially for you. Fast forward to my first small Thanksgiving with just my wife and I. In my first house. I sit down at the table with a big grin on my face and happily say, "Finally a Thanksgiving with no green jello made especially for me." At that exact moment my wife puts down a large bowl of green jello and says, "Your mother called. She said you loved it." I was about 8. My sister 14. My grandpa was making the stuffing and cut himself pretty bad. My dad had to take him to the hospital. My mom finished making the stuffing. Dad and grandpa make it back home in time for dinner. Grandpa's finger is all wrapped up. Dad said it was a pretty deep cut. We proceed to eat dinner. About 1 stroke 2 way through my sister spit her food out and there on the plate was the very tip of my grandpa's finger. Little slice of fingernail included. My dad didn't realize my mom had used the stuffing my grandpa had made. So saw no reason to upset people and tell them my grandpa had cut off his finger. It was after dinner and everyone was taking our pre-dessert break to clean up and get ready. Dessert is serious. My father is sitting at the head of the table watching the game on TV past the other end. I am dozing on the couch. My mother walks in from the kitchen. Pauses. And blankly says the table is on fire. I perk up and sure enough, someone had knocked a candle over and the tablecloth was on fire. My father was watching the game through the flames and didn't notice. Thankfully it was put out quickly and we still give him crap over his obliviousness. Growing up from age 3-7 there was a girl about my age that was the daughter of my aunt's friend. We were total besties. Anyways, one Thanksgiving her and I are running in and out of the house playing tag. I recall chasing her when bang. She runs right into the glass sliding door and I kid you not. The whole top half shatters and she's just laying over the bottom half damn near impaled by the shards. She was literally dangling and stuck on the glass. I still can't believe that happened. Poor girl. She had to get stitches all across her belly. We saw each other year after year but it felt so odd and I felt like it was my fault. Halfway through eating, my cousin's boyfriend proposed to her in front of 40+ family and extended family members. She said no. The year grandma went low carb with no advance warning. 12-ish relatives staying with Grandma Baba Yaga and her wonderful, adorable mother. The year GBY decided to ditch carbs in a haphazard fashion. Mashed yams were substituted for mashed potatoes, the stuffing disappeared, pumpkin pie was replaced by pumpkin mousse, which anesthetized everybody's tongues via brandy and far too much clove. Nobody expected the low-carb onset, all the stores were closed, a dozen people simmered in a hypoglycemic snit for hours. My relatively straight-edge mother got trashed and decided to ask her niece about the size of her fiancé's dick.